Imagine being banned from walking with your senior high school class at graduation because you said a couple of words that offended a few people.
I was supposed to go fight wildland forest fires. I went in to finish up my final paperwork. I was supposed to start Sunday, and I was informed by my boss after I'd finished my paperwork that he was going to rescind his offer. In our protest, it wasn't violent at all. Nobody did anything violent. We were just there to let me walk. Basically, that was our message. That's why everybody came together. I don't believe I would have been punished at all, personally, if I had said Black Lives Matter or any of the other things. It's reassuring to know that I'm not alone and realize what I did wasn't wrong.
So imagine if that was your son, getting ready to graduate high school, has a job lined up. He's not going to just hang around and do nothing all summer. And then he's told he cannot participate in graduation. And oh, by the way, the job offer is no longer on the table because you offended some people at the end of your speech by saying, and I quote, "Boys will be boys and girls will be girls, and there's no in between." Those words were so offensive to people that he not only could not walk with his graduating senior class, he was told he can no longer have the job as a firefighter fighting forest fires, which he planned to do right after high school. He was going to start immediately. This all happened in Idaho at Kellogg High School. That kid's name is Travis Lohr, Lohr. And quite frankly, I can't understand or believe that we are living in this world we are today. We're saying such harmless words will lead to people getting so offended and so upset that you can't graduate with your class, or you can graduate, but you can't participate. This is so ridiculous that I just don't know what's happening to our country. I really don't. But listen to the news report from that incident, and then we'll go on a little more.
High school students walked out today in protest of a disciplinary decision for one of the seniors. Administrators say that student made unapproved comments about gender.
But now, as a result of today's protest, the graduation ceremony that was supposed to be tomorrow is being postponed. In a Facebook post, the district said, quote, "The Shoshone County Sheriff's Office has informed the Kellogg School District of concerns regarding the safety of students, staff, and families due to a number of outside groups and agitators." KREM 2's Nathan Hyun went to Kellogg to learn more tonight.
I'm standing outside Kellogg High School where earlier today more than 30 students walked out in support of a student who's been barred from walking at graduation. It all started with one sentence at the end of the year assembly.
The seniors got to say one piece of advice or one thing that they wanted to tell the rest of school, and he said boys are boys and girls are girls and there's no in between.
This did not sit well with the school staff.
We could see on some of the faces of some of the teachers that they weren't too happy with his comment.
Students who were participating in the assembly were supposed to submit their speeches beforehand for approval. But the school says when he took the stage, the student read a different speech. The next day, the student was told because he broke the rules, he was no longer allowed to walk at graduation.
I think it's definitely political. I think that if he would have said one side, then it could have been just brushed under the rug and whatever, and he would have been totally fine.
Over the course of the week, students tell me they plan to walk out to show support. Korn Leeling was one of these students.
I think it was successful, at least for us getting our point across, and that we should have a stand and have a say.
Members of the Kellogg community also showed up, and today more than 100 people gathered outside the high school claiming the school was restricting the students' right to free speech.
It's fun to see, and I think a lot of people, supported many different things, and but I do believe we all have one main goal.
The school superintendent tells me it was never about the student's political stance, but because he went off script.
Because of behavior reasons that I can't go into, was told he could not participate in the graduation ceremony.
Superintendent Lance Pearson says the students who walked out today will be marked as absent with no excuse. And as of right now, there's no word on when the graduation ceremony will take place.
We're worried at this point of what's going to come. You know, we don't have a lot of officers within our sheriff's department, and we are going to carefully evaluate whether or not we can hold graduation safely.
As for many students, they hope the walkout makes a difference.
I'd love to see him walk, personally. I think, you know, you spent 12 years in school, you know, at least be able to walk at your graduation.
Even with the protest and walkout, the superintendent here tells me that the student will still be barred from participating in the graduation ceremony.
So the speech he turned in that he said he was going to read, according to the superintendent, he did not read. Well, maybe he read it, but he just added a little at the end. I don't know, but that's a possibility, right? This is a high school kid who, under the First Amendment of the Constitution, is entitled the right of free speech. But as you know, and we all know, that we're no longer allowed to have an opinion, to say what's on our mind, because there's a certain group of people that get offended, triggered, and they feel threatened. That's on them, as far as I'm concerned. That has nothing to do with hating a certain group or disliking someone because of who they are. Nothing at all. This is nothing but a political ploy by some high school superintendent to make this kid pay for his big mistake by saying those words. And the graduation ceremony was canceled because the sheriff thought there may be problems. And I'll read what you saw in that news clip, and I quote, "The Shoshone County Sheriff's Office has informed the Kellogg School District of concerns regarding the safety of students, staff, and families due to a number of outside groups and agitators." That, in my opinion, in my view, is just nonsense. I've read several stories on this. I've listened to several news clips on this. Not one person other than the sheriff's office mentioned that there may be trouble. There may be violence. There was not going to be any violence. There was not going to be any trouble. And of course, we have two sides. The side that staged a walkout to support Travis, and the side that said, "We're so offended, how dare you let him participate?" There is no violence. This anti-American attitude, if you will, lately, of so many different states, so many left-wing politicians, and most of the left-wing liberal media, I believe that a lot of their rhetoric towards violence towards a certain group, bad attitudes, people are scared, people are afraid, I think it's all nonsense. I think it's all politics. And one kid said it, it's a political move, but of course the superintendent and the school board said it has nothing to do with politics, and it absolutely does. We are entitled under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution to speak freely and openly, to have an opinion of how we feel or what's on our mind. If a person or a group gets offended by some words that were said, isn't that their problem? Shouldn't they rethink what they're really angry at? Because we all heard when we were kids, right? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Whatever happened to that? We all grew up with that saying, and it's probably still being said today with little kids. Words are considered violence today. Opinions are considered violence today. I quite frankly don't really know where this is all going to end, because to punish a kid for saying a handful of words that aren't in any way violent is wrong, and it should be changed. These people need to change the way they think, because it's okay for one group to parade around and fly their colors and protest that they're all upset and offended, but it's not okay for the other group, like this young man Travis, to say what's on his mind, because he's the bad one. And the other group, oh, they're right. And you have to agree with them. And if you don't, how dare you? You are nothing more than an extremist, a bigot. You're the bad person. You must go along with what the other group stands for. You have no choice. Why won't you go along with it? Why don't you believe what they believe? Because we, myself, most of you, we live in reality. We know what's right and what's wrong. We know what's real and what's not. We know what's possible and what isn't possible. And a lot of the things coming from this other group are not possible. They never were, and they never will be. And we have a president in the White House who's celebrating this group like they are the only people in the United States of America. He calls them brave. He calls them courageous. He said just a few days ago at the White House, he's never seen such courage, or he hasn't seen such courage in such a long time. And I talked about that because I don't understand what's so courageous about being who you are. Just be you. Call yourself what you want. Dress the way you want. No one cares. But you care because no one is celebrating you. No one is shaking your hand or clapping for you. That's how it's got to be. Because we as American citizens live under a Bill of Rights. And the very first one, and I can repeat this 1,000 times, is freedom of speech. You are allowed to have a differing opinion from someone else. You are allowed to speak your mind, but of course, saying anything like a racial slur or anything like that's absolutely wrong, and that should never be tolerated. But if that young man at the end of his speech said, Black Lives Matter, let's celebrate pride, let's celebrate transgenderism, let everybody come together and get on board with those causes, it's my belief that he would not have been banned from graduation and he would not have lost his job. But because he's an American who has a brain and spoke his mind, he was given the choice of missing graduate. Really, not given the choice. He was told in no uncertain terms, you will not participate in the graduation march with your class. And his employer told him, you no longer have a job. This country needs to change, and it needs to change fast. With the policies coming out of Washington that support only certain groups of people and not every American citizen are wrong. And I, quite frankly, am offended as an American because I was always of the belief that we all had the same rights. We all could live our lives the way we want to, within the law, of course, and that would not be a problem. But because we don't go along with a certain cause or a certain group, if you will, we're bad. We're bigots. We're MAGA Republicans. We know the Biden White House loves to say that MAGA Republican thing. This is a disgrace that this happened to this young man. He may have had a future in firefighting, and apparently that went away because the school superintendent and a few other people didn't like the words that came out of his mouth. So I always say this at the end of these types of videos, that all we can hope for is the future, and we get some political leaders who have a backbone and don't cower to certain groups of people just to get votes. We are all human beings. We are all American citizens. And if you get offended or triggered by some words, remember what I said a minute ago. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And that's it. And that's what it boils down to. A few people are offended by some words that were said, and all of a sudden there was going to be alleged violence, or some outside groups were allegedly going to come and agitators were going to be there, and we had to cancel the ceremony. Wake up, America. We're going nowhere with this administration. You know it. I know it. And quite frankly, the liberal left wing knows it, but they'll never admit it, and they're just going to push it as far as they can. And that's it. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone. I know the story's been out for a few days, but I had to talk about it. So share it with someone and let them see what's going on and what's happening to high school kids for saying a few words. It's just wrong in so many ways. I hope everybody's healthy and safe, and I'll see you soon.